Okay, let's talk about the practical tools, possible mindset shifts, strategies that you can incorporate into your mind so that you can approach your homeschool teens education, create an atmosphere that really helps support them to live into their purpose and to feel connected. First of all, if we haven't met, I'm Teresa Wiedrick. I'm the certified life coach and homeschool mentor over here in the Homeschool Mama Support Group. Also on YouTube at the Homeschool Mom Wellness and Mindset channel. Every week in Facebook here, I offer a coach's corner at 2:15 or thereabouts. And here I am also in my backyard. And that just tells you that I'm on brand. Do you see the blues and greens? Also, I like being outside, even though it is a balmy 2 degrees Celsius presently. yes, it is. I'm determined to spend time in the sunlight and wear a very cozy sweater. Okay, so if we haven't met, it's nice to meet you. I'd love to hear from you, who you are, who you homeschool. Tell me all about you, because otherwise I'm just talking to my phone in my backyard in Western Canada. Okay, so first thing, I want to share with you that I released a podcast episode today on Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast, and it's about conscious parenting, or the concepts that come from Dr. Shefali Tsabary's book, The Awakened Family. It's a book that deeply resonates with me. In fact, I read this book only in this last year, in the last few months, and I can see that so many of the things that she shares are things that I deeply understand now after almost 25 years of parenting. Did not know them in the beginning, did not want to accept some of them for a good long time, but I have seen that they are practical minds, they're approaches, mental spaces, an approach to thinking about your role as mom that really helps to release you into accepting the reality of your separate, unique child who has big emotions just like you do, who has a yearning and desire to be their own separate selves in this world. And she puts things so succinctly, articulately, and usefully. And I wanted to explore the concepts in her book in my podcast episode today. Then I spent a little time on Instagram Live today, because on Instagram at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday, my goal is to be there in the homeschool, have a conversation about various things. And today I was talking about this book, helping our kids lean into connection with us, also becoming their own true selves, and the reasons why we need to do that, allow themselves to do that, so that they can move into their own separate sense of purpose. And today here on Facebook, I want to talk to you about how to practically do that. So first of all, you can hear I'm podcast, I'm YouTube, I'm Instagram, I'm Facebook. And if you look at my life journey, you would probably look back in my earlier days and say, there's no way she would do stuff like that if you knew me. And it's true. There is no way I would have done this earlier on in my life journey. Also, all of these things did not exist in my earlier life journey, but they do. And now I know that one can grow and become who they were meant to be all throughout their lifetime, and continue to grow into iterations of who they're meant to be. And we have the beautiful privilege of watching our children do that. It's so intriguing to watch our kids when they're little explore interests, have various interests, and then you just wonder, if they're playing Legos all the time, does that mean they're going to be like an engineer one day? Like, is that every mother's thought about their kids? Not coincidentally, my kiddo, my youngest, who loved playing Legos, just turned 16 last week, and I would never have believed that he would have sold his Legos, but he did. And I've seen him play with Connects and like anything that can build together, be put together. We've done some version of all of the things. And then he did bigger things, like with his dad, he built a goat barn. Neither of them do that kind of thing, but they learned how to put together a goat barn, or, even the logic behind a chess game. He's really intrigued by chess, or, there's been so many things like putting together or learning how to build a computer, or Minecraft, of course, all these different things. It's been really interesting to watch him on that journey. And at this point, he really thinks he's going to go towards an engineering route, coincidentally. We'll see. It doesn't matter to me what he does. I want him to continue to grow into who he's meant to be and put the things that matter to him in life, his interests, his skills, and put it into something purposeful. Of course, I also want him to just be happy, said every mother, but I also know life is complicated and happy is not a constant. But I do want him to live a purposeful, meaningful life. And we get to watch our kids have these moments where they're curious about certain things, and it grows into something bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it becomes something later. It's super cool to watch. But one thing I've learned, kids are less motivated. They are less purposeful if we script everything for them. Very unpopular opinion here, and like it actually is. It's not just one of those things that you say so that you can garner attention. I think an unpopular opinion that I have is that if you really want your kiddo to be motivated, you got to do this one thing. Stop telling them what to do in every element of their life. I think it's the thing that actually works. But we can go into a deeper discussion on that. If that resonates with you deeply, you can always book a conversation with me to talk about how you can practically put meat on that conversation point. If you find you're constantly coming up against a kiddo that's not motivated and is unhappy with their lives, or there's a lot of pushback, then let me know and we'll have a conversation. But for the purpose of this conversation here, I want to share with you a few practical tools and how you can help them dig deeper into building stronger connection and also be more purposeful on their terms. Okay, so welcome to this week's Coach's Corner. Let's see. Purpose and connection. That's what this conversation is all about. So, when kids go into that homeschool high school age, or that high school age, that teenage years, we often think that as parents, we have to level things up dramatically. We have to create an opportunity for kids to go into college. So therefore, that means we have to do these 6 courses, and we have to fulfill these credits, and we have to make sure we get this portfolio put together, and we have to create these, a transcript and all these things. And those things absolutely could be part of your journey, and they were part of or a part of my kids' journeys for different reasons, different ways. But I don't think that's the most important part. And relearning algebra is also not the most important part. In fact, you do not have to do it if you're a mom and you're homeschooling. You can outsource any topic that you are not interested in doing. At core, we have this opportunity to enable our kids to live their high school years more purposefully and intentionally, and also helping them to connect in with us and those people that are the most important for them. I was really inspired by the book, The Awakened Family by Dr. Shefali Tsabary on conscious parenting, especially when it comes to how we connect with our kids as they get older. She said specifically, the greatest gift we can give our kids is not to teach what we know, but to allow them to find their own path, to find their own truth. I did not identify with this quote early on. I'm like, nope, I want the best for you, so I know there's certain things you shouldn't do. I know there's certain ways to not think. That was my default setting. It really was. And I didn't do it out of a bad motive. I did it because I love my kids and I wanted the best for them. And I think that quote really speaks to the heart of connection, or the heart of homeschooling teenagers, because we try to guide them. We sometimes err on the side of controlling without always understanding that that's what we're doing, but we err on that side. We try to mold them into a certain vision of what we think that they should become, or when we notice that they're doing Legos, well, then therefore you're an engineer, right? And but Dr. Shefali reminds us that the real gift is in giving them space or solitude to figure out who they really are, who they are, and that you are being their guide, not a dictator. You're being their guide. You're not declaring over them what they must do next or what their next steps are. I really believe that if we did this for everyone, we would have such an interesting world. There would be so much more innovation. There'd be so much more creativity. People would tap into things that really matter to them. There wouldn't be a concept of the midlife crisis. I really don't think so. But, how will I ever know? Because it probably won't happen. But I do think that we have that opportunity as homeschool moms, as parents. We can do that for our kids. We can do that. This is the point of this, is we have the freedom to create an atmosphere in whatever way we want. We do sometimes, some of us get to choose when we have children, and we get to decide. We don't get to usually decide certain elements of it, but we often are able to decide when we're going to have kids, but we don't get to decide who they are. They come into the world as gifts to us, and even if we try to shape them into something, we can't. We're kidding ourselves, because they are who they are. They were born into the world the way they are, and we can support them. We can walk alongside them. We can learn from them. We can also be guides, and we can also nurture them and give them a whole lot of stuff and drive them places and give them reason to think about life in a certain way, because we have our own stories that are infusing our experience, and so we're sharing that with them. We were given them to have a journey with, but we weren't there to dictate. When we talk about purpose, it's helpful to think about our kids, excuse me, as connecting in to, well, this is how I see it as an adult. Me learning more about my sense of purpose and why I'm here on the planet only originated because I got a stronger sense of who I am. So I directly see a connection between identity and purpose. And as a caveat, I don't think there's ever a point in our lives where we've arrived and purpose is, our unique purpose here is declared, and this is the only reason we're here. We're only here to coach homeschool moms. I don't think that's the only reason I'm here. But I do think that when we get a stronger sense of who we are and what we're about, what lights us up, or what feels like it has value and meaning, and whatever that is, if we have a sense of ourselves, we can lean into that, and then we do live more purposefully. This is our experience when we're midlife, and it's also our experience when we're adolescent. If we have an environment where parents are supporting us to become who we always were as we came into the world. I think purpose is something that everyone craves. I was having a conversation with someone recently who was just telling me she was bored. And I won't go into her specific details because I didn't ask, but she was talking about boredom and saying, well, maybe going on a trip would be really useful. And it could be really expensive, totally could be really fun. And it could be very meaningful too. But creating happiness, trying to create happy moments, and just having constant fun, I personally don't think that is what life is. There's just so much more mixed in with it. There's so many other things that happen in life. It's not always fun. It's not always happy. Hard stuff happens. But I think we, at core, really want not happy and fun. We want purpose. We want meaning. We want to feel like what we're doing matters. And that is just as true for our teenagers as it is for us. If you notice that your teenager is sort of drifting in and out of their academic things, that they're not really seeing the point of what they're doing, or it really doesn't feel like it's relevant to them, if you find that you're handing them something, this is what you need to do, or assigning them a project, or if you're not really having the conversation of, let's chat about why this could matter, and them actually buying into it connecting to their why, then they might follow through and be compliant and do the thing they're supposed to do for a time. But as you and I both know, when we were in high school, and we were in a class, assuming you're not homeschooled, if we were in a formal program and someone said, this is the thing you need to learn, just because they said that didn't mean it happened. Just because they put a curriculum in front of you didn't say that you actually cared about the content. Certainly was not my case. And even if you were a student that was able to perform, you may have done the student role well, but you may not have genuinely learned. You may have tested well, but then you left that test and didn't care anymore about what you'd learned. And I see us giving our kids these opportunities, or giving our kids loads of activities as distracting them from the things that are the most important. What's the most important thing? I think that's very dependent on the child that's in front of you. They need to be connected in to why they're doing what they're doing. They need to decide that something's valuable. We have the freedom as adults, officially, to explore our passions and to do things that are meaningful to us, to do the things that spark our own interests. And we don't always take that either, but we do have the capacity to do that a lot of the time, even if we have to work full-time hours in order to accomplish whatever financial monthly goals that we have. We still have the capacity. We have the freedom to do things intentionally outside of that time. And we want to be able to create that opportunity for our kids just as much. I think sometimes we overstep our high school kids' time by saying you need to do all these different activities, because a balanced high school student would mean that you're volunteering, you've got a part-time job, you're figuring out how to add things to your portfolio, or you're figuring out how to tackle all these different science or history or whatever classes. And when we pack anyone's days too full, they don't have enough solitude, they don't have a margin around their day to really think and consider what is the most important thing. We want to give kids, whether they're high school students or whether they are younger kids or whether they're full-grown adults like us, time to actually sit in solitude and listen to what is the most important thing. I think that's probably one of the hardest things to get away from in our culture, is to let go of an addiction to production and always be active in doing things, to actually just sit and be and experience the margins of life or the quiet of life. And then we get clear on what really matters to us. I think we can set our homeschool high school kids or our teenagers, we set them up well when we give them lots of space just to be and to think. So how do you do this? You can ask questions. If you want to help them have greater purpose or deeper sense of purpose, you can ask questions, not just about the work that they're doing, but about what matters to them. Have those big, juicy conversations. And you want to know where you can have those conversations? The best place? In a car or a minivan while you're driving them somewhere. This has always been, to me, like the most opportune time to have the deep conversations is a long car trip to nowhere, or maybe somewhere that they want to go. What lights them up? Ask them, notice instead of ask them what lights them up. Maybe notice what lights them up, what they naturally want to talk about, or what they're naturally spending their time doing. You can have those conversations with some kids and ask them, what do they dream about doing? What are they curious about? You can tell them what you dream about and what you're curious about to spark a conversation. What do you want to be when you grow up? What a question. Some of us, even at 40, don't know. So when, help them address that frequently asked question of the general public when they get to be about the 17th or 18th year, and everybody says, what are you going to be when you grow up? And they go, I don't know. Am I supposed to know? I think it's highly unfair that we're expecting that from them. As you know, what I know, you can be 30 and not know what you're going to do when you grow up. You can be 65 and decide to change what you're going to do when you grow up. And so this unfair question actually might be an opportunity for conversation with your kiddo to actually say, hey, how do you want to approach this question now that we're moving into that stage? And then when, let's see, Dr. Shefali, in her book, The Awakened Home or Family, talks about our relationships with our kids, not about controlling them, but connecting with them. I go into a deeper dive on this discussion over on Instagram. And if you're not on Instagram, you'll see the conversation on YouTube before the end of the day. So I talk more about connection, seeing who your kids really are, perhaps doing an Enneagram or some personality profile test together to get clear on what motivates them. What's their core motivations? What are the things that they're most likely to avoid? The things that they don't want to deal with. Maybe they're natural peacemakers and they dislike conflict. Or maybe they dislike being bored and they just want fun all the time. Getting to know them as a personality helps you help them connect in with themselves. They're already in this really intense phase of life. And if you're like me, I've learned over the last number of months to a year a lot about perimenopause and menopause. And if you're a homeschool mom about my age, then you know, or maybe you haven't been introduced to this idea yet, but we're going through this big adolescent brain change. And it's not just teenagers that experience it. It's also middle-aged women. And I think that's the first time I called myself a middle-aged woman. Anyways, I'm going through that. I know a lot of you are going through that at the same time that your kids are going through their teenage adolescence. And that combination is very interesting. We both are looking for deeper clarity on what the next stage of life is. So if you can identify with those experiences or that feeling, know that that's where your kids are at too. So they're not entirely sure what's the next thing that they should be doing. They're already navigating so much, the hormones and the mental or brain shift, figuring out who they are in the world, and then loads of people asking them, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Well, the last thing they need is for us to require them to be what we think they are supposed to be. Our goal is to create this secure space where they can be themselves and be seen and heard and understood, no matter what they say and no matter what stories they share, so they can feel supported and understood. And when we do that for them, we teach them how to do that for themselves. We are able to mirror to them what matters most, learning how to connect with other people and also learn how to connect with themselves. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there, but I'm really curious if you are in the place of homeschooling a teenager, or if you have a teenager in your home, if you're moving into that adolescent phase, if you've got questions or you've got thoughts about some of the things that I'm sharing, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So consider spending just a little bit of time, especially, okay, if you've got a lot of kids. I know that it's hard to spend one-on-one time with each of the kids, but try to spend unique time with your teenager in your home, because they need you in a different way. They need you to be less prescriptive, more open-hearted, and more willing to just be with them. Sometimes they don't want conversation, and they'll tell you. Or maybe that's just my kids. Or sometimes they want you at a certain time that you're not available. Maybe expect that your late evenings are more likely conversations with kids on your bed or on their bed. I'd love to hear from you. How are you building or helping your kids build deeper purpose and connection in their lives right now? If you would drop a comment below and let me know. I would like to hear, and I will see you next week for Coach's Corner around this time, 2:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Facebook. And I hope you have a great week.